Welcome on Texas football. Time for this week's State of the Program. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton and Jeff Howe, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Guys, let's this week we're going to talk about better or worse 25 versus 24 Texas football. Go position by position and figure out who's better or which positions are better and worse versus 25 versus 24. And go from there. But first, I want to mention this because this is State of the Program, and there's nothing more ripe for that content than this. Texas has secured the annual Lone Star Showdown. I think it's called the Cotton Holdings Lone Star Showdown now over rival Texas A&M. They've already clinched it, even though there's still some points left out there. Texas with the better overall athletic program. It's a no surprise than your Texas A&M Aggies. Gerry and Jeff, we've talked about this kind of stuff ad nauseum. We really try to do a good job of bringing in like golf coach John Fields this morning, or Bob Bowman, the swim and dive coach. We try to include all of those guys and folks into our programming here at On Texas Football, because at the end of the day, that's part of what makes up the whole entire athletic department. So it's great to see Texas maintaining or winning the new trophy, I guess, now that it's been gone for so long with this new renewed rivalry in the SEC. Texas, again, taking in this or guaranteeing itself the Lone Star Showdown trophy. They won it over the weekend or guaranteed it over the weekend with a win over Texas A&M in baseball. Actually, a very fitting series sweep there. All right, let's go forward. We're going to talk a little position by position, better or worse in 25 versus 24. Let's start at quarterback. Given that Quinn Ewers went in the 7th round of the NFL draft, and most people are, whether they're right or wrong, putting Arch Manning as number 1 in the 2026 NFL draft, does Texas improve quarterback in 2025 versus 2024? Gerry Hamilton, you're first out of the box.
Well, I would say yes. It's this total skill set, right? Even though Arch does not have the experience Quinn had, it's what it's going to do for the offense, have the mobility, the pocket presence, the ability to throw the ball vertically down the field. If Texas isn't better at quarterback this year, they'll be in the Alamo Bowl.
What about you, Jeff? If Texas isn't better at quarterback, they'll be in the Alamo Bowl.
Alamo Bowl sends shivers down my spine, so let's hope Gator Bowl or something else. But I digress. I think just the overall upside of Arch makes the potential of Arch Manning makes this position group better. You can argue, in terms of overall depth, you're probably not better if you look at Trey Owens as your backup and KJ Lace as your 3, or vice versa. And Arch was the backup last year, but I just think Arch's ceiling just puts it over the top for me. I think if Arch Manning lives up to his potential, if he's as good as we think he is, Texas is winning a national championship.
Ooh, those are big words. That's much better than the Alamo Bowl, Gerry. Hey, here's my question. Can you give them 2 different grades, early and late? Because do you expect a Quinn Ewers like Michigan performance when Arch Manning goes to Columbus, Ohio? First game of the year.
Well, Bobby,
or do you expect a young quarterback going on the road for the very first time? And this will be his first road start, right? So even though he got some time last year, he didn't have a road start. He certainly didn't have it in front of 105,000 people in Columbus, Ohio.
That will hate him, yes.
That will hate, no doubt. That will hate him. I'll say this. I think Texas is in a better – I would say that early in the season they would be in better hands with a Quinn Ewers returning. Late in the season, given Arch's ability to throw the ball downfield, to fit it in what I think are going to be tight windows or tighter windows as the season goes on, and his ability to run are really going to be factors in the red zone. And we all know that as the season goes on, points scored can be more precious. I mean, take, for example, the whole Arizona State game, right? They didn't move the ball well. You got to score when you get down there, et cetera. I feel like when points become a premium, red zone becomes more important. And I think simply for red zone run game alone and fitting the ball into tight windows, I think Texas is going to be better at quarterback in 25 than 24. And that is no knock on Quinn Ewers, who led this team to 2 consecutive national semifinals. What about running back? Lose Jaden Blue, but we presumably get to see a return of Cedric Baxter. Christian Clark as well as looked good. There's supposed to be a leaner Jarrett Gibson. Trey Weiser rushed for 1,000 yards. He was really the go-to back. James Simon added to the mix. Better or worse in 25 than 24 for you guys?
Right now, I'm going to say worse because Jaden Blue became one of your go-to commodities on offense late in the year.
Led the team in touchdowns, 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, Bobby, and even especially in the passing game, we know how much Sark loves throwing the football to the running backs. And this is not anything to say negative about Trey Weisner, because anybody that's heard me knows I'm a Trey Weisner fan. But Christian Clark coming off of a serious injury, how ready is he going to be? When is CJ Baxter going to? My target point for CJ Baxter is that Florida game. I'm not expecting him to come out and rush for 100 yards in Columbus against Ohio State. So I'm going to say worse right now with the understanding that depending on how Baxter and Clark are coming out of the gate, if they get trending in the right way, it could be better.
What about you, Jerry?
I'm gonna put it in 2 different parts because I do think the running back position is 2 different parts. And I'll start with the area they're going to be worse this year. Pass catching out of the backfield because of what Jaden Blue was. There's no way they're going to be as good, but I think the offense is going to be different. As runners, much, much, much improved. I don't even think it's going to be close because Trey Weiser is going to be a junior. So add 8 to 10 pounds onto him and that experience. Look, James Simon was really good this spring. It doesn't surprise any of us. Jarrett Gibson's going into year 2. He's going to be a better player than year 1. Christian Clark looked really good in the spring coming off the injury. A fearlessness and a quick healer is a good thing to be in life. And then Cedric Baxter coming back. I think as far as running the football, and remember, because Jaden Blue wasn't a guy that Sark thought he could count on running the football in his scheme last year very often. I think they're going to be much, much improved running the football at the running back position.
I think it's interesting because I think you're right. He didn't trust him because he's got fumbleitis. But then he popped off that, 70-something yarder against Clemson?
Yeah.
Man, Jaden Blue was the touchdown maker for this team. Touchdown against A&M, back in the end zone. 2 touchdowns against Ohio State. I think Trey Weisner, by the way, is going to be better this year than he was a year ago. I'm not going to say 50% better or something like that, but appreciably based on what I saw in this spring. More physically ready to handle the demands out of the gate this season. I'm going to go worse because I think Texas lost its touchdown maker. Doesn't mean it's appreciably worse though. Like if they're going, if you were to give them an 85 this year, you might go down to an 83. I don't think it's going to be a lot worse. But what about wide receiver? This is the most glaring to me because not only do you lose Matthew Golden, not only do you lose Isaiah Bond, who, when healthy, was really, really good. You lose a key backup in Silas Bolden. I've got to go worse, even though I think that the group as a whole right now may be as good or better than it was a year ago because you got an older Ryan Wingo, an older DeAndre Moore, an Emmett Mosley coming in. My point being, I think that again, like quarterback, ask me this question in November. And if they're still healthy in November, you could be looking at a wide receiver group that's as good as. But right now, I've got to say worse in 2025 on offense. You guys, what do y'all want to say?
If we're talking paper this year, paper this time last year, worse. But Isaiah Bond was injured. Silas Bolden never really got into the mix. I think they're going to be better. I know this sounds crazy, but I said it last year before the season. I thought they'd be better, but they got injured. And I think they would have been better. They would have been faster as a group. But Ryan Wingo, if he looks like a first-round pick this year in year 2, and DeAndre Moore looks like an NFL player, and Emmett Mosley looks like an NFL player, if they stay healthy, I think they're going to be better because the health of that position was not there last year. So health dependent. They won't run as fast at times at the combine, but I think they're going to be better overall. But they got to stay healthy for that to come to fruition.
Do you think better overall?
Yeah, I do.
Wow. That is definitely against the grain. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I feel about wide receiver kind of how Gerry laid out running back. I think probably in totality you would say worse, but I think more than that, I think it's just going to be different. I don't. Again, we can get into chicken or the egg. Is it a byproduct of what their best targets are that they're changing body types, or are they intentionally looking for different body types? Either way, I think the fact that they're looking for, and they've got a room full of, bigger bodied receivers who can probably make tougher catches in traffic, with Wingo and Mosley, you've got a couple of guys that can win 50-50 battles downfield. They've got the right receiving core, I think, for the kinds of throws that Arch can make. Throws deeper down the field, outside the numbers. I think guys like Wingo and Mosley are going to thrive in that kind of deal. We know DeAndre Jordan is kind of taking over that Jordan Whittington role of, third down, reliable. You kind of know where he's going to be. He's not going to mess up. Is he going to break the big, be that home run hitter? Probably not, but he's a guy that you can rely on third down and in the red zone. So I just think that's it for me, Bobby. I would probably say if you look at it on paper, you'd say worse, but I think it could be just as effective, if not more, because it's going to be a different group than last year's.
Bobby, before you say, I just want to say something. Texas has never returned 2 starting receivers off a college football playoff team before.
That's true. They went to the portal. I will say this. I think that I think not this year, but 2026 for those receiver group, if they all stay, including DeAndre Moore, it will be as good a receiver group as Texas ever had. And I mean, that goes back a long time, including Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty stout group, but I think that's more 2026 than 2025, just based on their age right now. Wingo and Mosley in particular, right, as well as Livingstone. All right, let's go to tight end. Again, I know Jack Indries had a great year at Cal, but they also had Juan Davis, who had spent some time at Texas, losing Gunnar Helm, obviously, team's leading receiver a year ago. You got to go down here a little bit, right? I mean, what do y'all think? I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what you think of Jack Indries, as well as Spencer Shannon vis-a-vis Juan Davis and Jordan Washington as well, although he was hampered by injury this spring. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm going to go you're better.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I think the upside. I feel the same way about tight end that I do at quarterback. And I know that's saying a lot, but I think the upside of Jordan Washington, even though he was hurt in spring practice, I think his upside is huge. I think Nick Townsend, even though he wasn't a mid-year guy, is going to give this team something. I also think, Jack Indries, you look at, I think he can have the same kind of impact as Gunnar Helm. Sitting here last year, none of us thought Gunnar Helm was going to be a 50-60 catch tight end.
No, we were talking about Amari Niblack.
Jeff, that's a good point because Indries already is.
Exactly. So I think you've got the personnel, the ceiling of your personnel is better, I think, than this year than what it was last year. I also think too, the addition of Neil Brown, bringing Neil Brown in, looking at how he used the tight end and the H-back, how he uses it in his offense. I think with a guy like Nick Townsend, I think Neil Brown can help Sark unlock some tools in his system to get the most out of a guy like Nick Townsend and kind of lay the blueprint for him. So I think all things considered, I think tight end is going to be better than it was last year. Will the numbers be there? I don't know, but you will be more dynamic and it'll be a bigger playmaking position than it was last year.
That's interesting because I always give Neil Brown some credit for QB run game, and you're giving it to him for those H-back. What about you, Gerry? Better or worse at tight end this year?
I thought I was going to break the bank saying better. Jeff beat me to it because I just sound like I'm all orange Kool-Aid over here. But, I don't think they'll be as good from an experience standpoint, but I think from a talent standpoint, they are going to be better. So I'm going to go to something you said, Bobby. Let's talk about this around Florida time.
Yeah.
Starting the season, not as good because they haven't all played together for as long. By midseason, I definitely think they're going to be better.
Wow. That's all right. Y'all have got me. I went worse because I just think Gunnar Helm had a great season.
He did.
And I thought Juan Davis was reliable, consistent, and there's not a single guy on Texas roster that's caught as a tight end that's caught a pass at Texas. Yeah, I mean, so look, I put worse, even though I think injury is going to be good. To your point, I think Spencer Shannon's the inline guy. Jordan Washington can do a little bit of both. I mean, they've got pieces, so I understand that. But you're actually I'm talking about when we grade this output on the field, and what they're going to be able to do. All right, O-line, offensive line. Is there? I mean, look, if I'm going to say worse because you lost 4 or 5 starters. Why would you not say worse, right? On paper, and all of those guys except for one were multi-year starters. Mm-hmm. Cannon Williams was the only one that didn't start at least 3 years of that group. And so when I look at this, you have to say worse. And that, for me, from the offense as a whole, I'm just going to say this. I only have one spot being, quote unquote, better next year, and that's quarterback. But what do y'all think about the offensive line?
It's, again, if you the proverbial and metaphorical gun to my head, if you need an answer, I'm going to say worse. Because you can't lose the Outland Trophy winner in a top 10 draft pick and be better, right? I just refuse to believe that.
As good as Trevor Gooseby is,
right?
Yeah.
But to me, the ultimate success or failure and growth and trajectory of this line, I'm not so much worried about the tackles. It's those 3 interior guys. If it clicks for DJ Campbell, for Neto, and for Cole Hudson, I think those 3 guys can make you a much better short yardage offense.
Yes.
Much better goal line red zone offense. And you'll be able to move people off the ball and reestablish the line of scrimmage with those 3 guys with much more consistency. So I'm going to say worse, but I feel like we're saying this with almost every position. Ask me again around the Florida game, around the midpoint of the year. And I think if it clicks with that group, we'll be talking about an offense that's much better, much improved in the areas where they were deficient last year.
Yeah, you're not looking for a toss sweep on 2nd and goal.
No.
Gerry, what do you think?
It's crazy to say this. They're going to be more talented and more athletic, but not quite as good because of experience.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be times where you watch them and say, wow, that guy's better than the other guy last year. And you're going to be able to point the games. But the experience and communication of an offensive line is so big. It's like a half-court basketball team that's played together for a long time, that knows where everybody's going to be, and they communicate at a high level and they talk at a high level. Until that's proven, I can't say they're going to be as good. Yeah. But I think they may have more talent.
Gerry, Bobby, are we at a point with this offensive line where if you go back to like 2001, 2002, and you go into 2003, if you think back that far, and you're transitioning out of the Matt Andersons and the Robbie Dones and the Antoine Kirk Hugheses, and a young Justin Blaylock gets in the mix, and a young Casey Studdard, and a young Jonathan Scott, and a young Tony Hills, I think we might be at that point. So this might be more of a transition year with this offensive line than anything.
Bobby, I think that's a really good point Jeff makes. I think Brandon Baker's a very talented redshirt freshman. Trevor Gooseby, as of right now, stands as a 2-year guy at Texas. Neto's not a senior. The only guy, Cole Hudson, and then DJ Campbell. But your young guys in the boat coming as well. I see a lot of that, Jeff. I think that's a really good point.
You think they could be better in 2026 than 2025?
Absolutely.
Because if we're talking about an offensive line, I mean, how do you guys feel? Granted, the returns we've gotten on Daniel Cruz and Nate Kibble, a 2026 offensive line, you lose Hudson and Campbell, but you plug in Cruz and Kibble, you're losing two veteran pieces, but I think you're going to be more talented.
And Nick Brooks will be a sophomore.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fingers crossed there, Gerry. Good one. All right. Before we get going on to defense, let's tell everybody a little bit about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. Thank you very much, Adam, for sponsoring each and every episode of State of the Program. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, make sure you give Adam and his group a shout. Reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. They will give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see whether or not you might be due compensation. Again, reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. Thank you, Adam, for sponsoring On Texas Football. All right, defense. Let's kind of do this in separate ways, if you don't mind. And instead of saying defensive tackle as a position, let's talk about run defense and pass rush. Okay. You think they're better run defense or not this year? I'm gonna be the negative Nelly on this, and I'm saying worse because I saw what Jermaine Lole, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Bill Norton, Alex January brought to the table last year. Now I think that this defensive line, even with Collins and Broughton being drafted in the second and third rounds respectively, brought to the table. I still think this young group that Texas has this year may be more talented overall, but those are guys that played a lot of football at Texas or in college football. Lole, Norton, both fifth-year guys. Broughton, Collins, played 4 years at Texas. I'm going to say a little bit worse on run defense, not by much, not appreciably, but I mean, Texas made so many big-time stands. I also would include Baron Sorrell, by the way, in run defense because he was really he held the strong side edge really, really well. What do you think, Gerry? You've been a little vocal on thinking Texas might be better, so I want to put it to you this way.
I'm making sure this isn't burn orange like Gold Peak.
Make sure you're not drinking orange Kool-Aid. Is that what you're saying?
Bobby, I think they're going to be better in both. Look, and I might be wrong on this from the disruption standpoint, the pass rush standpoint. I just think they have better players in terms of depth. I'm not even sure I'm high enough on Murad Watson was a freshman All-American. He may have been the only freshman All-American to go in the portal. Like, you added a freshman All-American to your defensive line. And Cole Brevard, who's played a lot of snaps in the Big Ten over the ball and doing it at a high level, is going to have an NFL draft grade. Levon Johnson, if he's healthy. Travis Shaw's played a lot of football. Hero Canoe should be ready. Alex January had a really good spring. And then the young kids they really like. The versatility in the NASCAR package pass as far as disruption. Call me crazy. I think they're going to be better, man. I think they're going to be better at both. I definitely think they'll be better against the run. And I'm not saying they were bad because I thought Jermaine Lole was really, really good, third D lineman. But I just think the depth is going to be better, man. I really do.
Could be. I mean, I get it. What about you? Rush defense, pass rush. Okay.
I'm with you, Bobby. You took the words out of my mouth. The run defense, I'm going to say worse because I don't think we give enough credit to Baron Sorrell because you didn't notice him much, and that's a good thing because he was just steady and he just did his job all the time.
He held the edge. He held the edge.
Great job. Yeah,
exactly. So not that I think Ethan Burke is a bad player or Colin Simmons is definitely not a bad player, but are you going to maybe be a little more vulnerable to some of those C gap and out runs than you were last year, whereas Sorrell just took away one side of that, and maybe you could overload to help out Colin Simmons a little bit more. I think pass rush are going to be better. I just think the addition of Brad Spence, moving Trey Moore to off-ball linebacker, the continued emergence of Colin Simmons, what you can do with Anthony Hill. I think moving Trey Moore around and adding Brad Spence, I think PK's just got so many more pieces he can move around, and you can show an offense so many different looks. And the big thing for Texas is you can have organic pressure. These guys are good enough natural pass rushers. You can have organic pressure without blitzing and leaving a secondary vulnerable or leaving guys on islands all the time. So I just think the ferociousness, the veracity of your pass rush this year, it's going to be the best pass rush we've seen at Texas in a very long time.
So we're going to agree on pass rush, all three of us. I just can't. while I think the run defense is going to take a little step back, pass rush is just you mentioned guys. Brad Spence has been. You didn't even mention Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
Jeff. I mean, because he's not part of the front four, but I mean, my goodness, it's ridiculous. If they can find somebody to rush the passer from the interior, it could be an all-time great pass rushing unit. I would add that. So whether that's Alex G, I don't know who that might be, right? But if they can find one big guy that can really push the pocket on the interior, you could be talking about an all-time great pass rushing unit at the University of Texas.
I got good news for the interior D-line players in search of that. You're going to have a lot of favorable matchups.
Yes.
Because of the edge pass rush and the linebacker ability downhill.
Yeah. All right. The pass rush. Let's go to linebackers and talk about them.
Yeah.
We mentioned Brad Spence. We mentioned Trey Moore, Leonga Howe. This is a no question better for me. Now, and that doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate Mo Blackwell and David Benda a year ago, but I feel like even with the loss of that experience, we've just heard great things about Brad Spence. I'm going better at linebacker. Gerry, I'll let you go first here.
I think it's going to be the best group of linebackers talent-wise Texas has had in a very long time. Look, Anthony Hill, I think as great a player as he is, hit ball carrier, he's got to get better in pass coverage. Clemson attacked him a little bit there, right? It's natural year 3. But, look, I think Texas – lost 2 really good program players, been signed a free agent contract. I think they brought in an NFL draft pick in Brad Spence. And I think they brought in young guy in Bo Barnes, who's very talented, to go with Anthony Hill as a junior, LaFau as a junior, Anthony Smith as a sophomore, Trey Moore playing some off-the-ball linebacker. When they walk out as a linebacker group this year, they're going to look more like Georgia's did from a physical standpoint. Georgia's looked on the field, you said, if we don't block this guy, or this guy, they're going to be hitting our quarterback the whole game. And that's pretty much what happened. Texas is going to roll out guys where people are going to be like, ooh, if we don't block this guy, and this guy, we're in for a long day. Texas has those guys now.
Yeah, Are you going to be contrarian, or are you going with the group here?
No, Gerry mentioned Georgia, and I was laughing because Michael Taft, during his media availability during spring ball, he said, "Look, I don't play with anybody on that 2021 Georgia defense." He said, "But when I look at our linebacker room and see guys like Anthony Hill, I imagine that's probably what they looked like." Yeah, that's what they look like. They look like Anthony Hill. And we talk about the pass rush and moving Trey Moore, how much versatility that gives you. Don't lose sight of, I go back to 2022, and towards the end of that season, we kind of saw Jeff Choate and PK put Mo Blackwell in a role of kind of a dime linebacker where you could really be versatile with your sub packages. And I know Blackwell, the injury, it never really clicked. I think Anthony Smith in that role can be a difference maker because you're not going to lose anything because he's a physical in the box player. But I think he's much better in coverage, and his ball skills are better than Mo Blackwell. So I think your sub packages with Anthony Smith as a piece of that, you've got a chance, guys. You can have the best third down defense in the country just because you've got so many different looks you can throw at an offense.
I agree.
I just think there's no doubt about it. Anthony Hill's a year older too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. I mean, I think that he's going to blossom and continue to do so because I think I don't know what his final upside ceiling is, but we haven't seen it. And so hopefully he continues to grow. All right. Secondary / pass defense. This is the problem. While I think the pass rush is going to be even better than it was last year when it was terrific last year, I am really worried about the secondary because you lose a Thorpe Award winner and Andrew Makuba. I mean, how many starts between those guys? 80 between two guys that you lost? 80 starts? And you're replacing them with guys that haven't played that much. I mean, you didn't bring anybody in from the portal. Y'all's thoughts on this? Because I am leaning heavily to weaker in 2025, even though I think the pass rush will help them. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That's my big secondary. It's my big concern in the Ohio State game because look, you lost 3 coaches too. So are you going to have the same communication and continuity right out of the gate? That's the hard thing for me. You lost your two best defensive backs off that team. You had unbelievable communication last year. So I think at the start of the year, there's no doubt it's going to be worse. Now, that only impacts you in one game before you can pull it all together, get to an off week, and then you head to Florida.
Fair.
But I agree, Bobby. And it's not just the players that left. It's the three changes at the coaching staff. So you have to bring all this together in fall camp. Because Sark said it, Jeff, in front of us. We build the team with Torrey Becton this summer and in fall camp. It's going to have to come together quickly to be close to as good when it needs to be against Ohio State, because that's going to be the best receivers Texas goes up against. I don't know what their quarterback's going to look like, but they're going up against all NFL wideouts up there.
No doubt. I think you're worse. Again, like I said about the offensive line, you can't lose a Thorpe Award winner, a first-round draft pick, and tell me, oh, yeah, we're better than we were last year. Now, you're going to take a step back. Now, you're going to be younger. You're going to lack experience. But the talent you've got at corner, you've got the pieces to be they're never going to be, a Nick Saban, Alabama, or one of those classic LSU defenses where they're like 90% man coverage, but they can do more of it. And Sark's been wanting to do more of it. He wants a defense that can be stickier in man coverage. They've got the personnel to do that. You can't replace a guy like Jahdae Barron because he just did so much for your defense and erased so many mistakes. And we saw a healthy Makuba was a difference maker. Getting Derek Williams back is going to help. I think the wild card to me in the secondary, it's not that corner spot opposite Manny Muhammad. It's, is Jelani McDonald going to be like an impact player on that level, like in like a first team all SEC type level? If he is, then the drop off it shouldn't cripple you. But I think the upside is the young corners and whatever you get out of Jelani McDonald, that can cushion the blow.
I'm going to add this. I think Manny Muhammad needs a little bit of a comeback. Last month of the season or 2 months of the season, he did not have a great finish, a great close. No. So this is going to be a comeback year for him. A little bit, in my opinion.
It's his contract year, NFL contract year. He wants to be 3 and out. This should be his best year if he's going to get it done.
Yeah.
All right, specialists. I don't think there's any doubt that Texas is going to improve year over year in specialists. But what about special teams as a whole? Like Silas Bolden made some nice plays, big punt return against Arizona State. But overall, I thought Texas had a very subpar year a year ago. If it's not better this year, I would be extraordinarily surprised. And that's not even knowing who the kick and punt returners are at this point. I would still be surprised if Texas special teams aren't better. So I'm going better in 2025.
Yeah.
At specialists.
They're going to be better at punter kicker, right? I mean, and I hate to take a shot at Auburn. He'd been really good for 2 years, but he just didn't have a good third year. So I think they're going to be better there. Although Mason Shipley has as much pressure on him as any Texas player out of the gate, other than Arch Manning. But here's where to be determined if they're going to be better. Execution, too many penalties. Given Arizona couldn't get Arizona State off the field on that first drive, else that game could have been a blowout, right? I mean, it's just you had so many penalties on special teams last year. If they clean that up, no doubt they're better. But they could have better talent, and if they don't clean that up, it ends up being a push in a weird way. Because they had some pretty bad penalties and errors on special teams last year that carried over throughout the season.
To your point, Jerry, you think about how good the defense was last year. Think about how much better they would have been or how good they were in spite of the fact that the special teams constantly put you in poor field position and the offense turned the ball over way too much. Like, they were a great sudden change defense and a great defense defending short fields. Those are two things you don't want a lot of reps at figuring out how good you are. So it just puts into perspective how good the defense was. I'm with you, Bobby. If we don't look at Texas and can unequivocally say, yeah, they got some of the best coverage units in the country. Their blocking units should be good. I think with the return game, question marks, I wouldn't mind if Jeff Banks got a little more aggressive, got back to being creative to where they're coming after more kicks to try to help out an inexperienced quarterback and an inexperienced offense, give them some juice and, force the issue with field position a little bit more. So I'm with Gerry. I think overall you've got to play cleaner, but I'd like to see them get back to where they're more aggressive and forcing the issue with special teams.
I just want them to hold serve. I didn't even feel like – they had Matt Golden, who was one of the better returners in the country.
I was going to say
they didn't do much.
Every time he got a big return, it was penalty.
Yeah, and so I do think they have to be better. Sark brought in a kicking specialist to help with that, so I think they're going to be fine there. I just hope I think they've got to be better. The numbers say that they should be based on Jack Bowmeister alone.
Yeah,
at punter. So that could add you 5 yards per kick a game. That alone should be better.
Yeah, you give a really good defense somebody who can flip the field, and you might have a great defense.
You think back to Michael Dixon and what he was able to, how much he was able to help Texas as a punter. All right, before we get going here, we got to say thank you to our sponsor once again. That's Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, Adam and his firm have been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years now. Just reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation on whether or not they believe you might be due compensation. Again, loweylawfirm.com. Thanks again, Adam, for your support of On Texas Football. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of State of the Program. For Jeff Howe and Gerry Hamilton, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good day. Book 'em.